The sewer tunnel bank robbery. On the long Bastille Day weekend of July 1976, Albert Spaggiari orchestrated what would become known as the heist of the century in Nice, France. Spaggiari, a photographer by trade and former paratrooper, had meticulously planned for months to break into the vault of Société Générale Bank. What made this heist truly remarkable was not what Spaggiari took, but how he got in. Rather than attempting to breach the heavily secured front entrance, he and his gang of criminals rented a box in the bank's safe deposit vault to study the layout and security systems. Then they purchased a shop 2 buildings away from the bank. From the basement of this shop, the gang began digging. For 2 months, they tunneled 8 meters through the earth, eventually breaking through the sewer system that ran directly beneath the bank. The timing was perfect. The Bastille Day weekend provided them with 3 full days when the bank would be closed and unmonitored. Once inside the vault, the gang methodically drilled into nearly 400 safe deposit boxes. They stole an estimated 20 million francs in cash, gold, and jewels, approximately $30 million in today's value. The thieves even brought camping stoves to cook meals and kept the vault spotlessly clean during their extended stay. When bank employees returned after the holiday, they found the vault door welded shut from the inside, and on the wall, spray-painted in bold letters, was Spaggiari's now famous motto, "Sans armes, ni haine, ni violence." Without bananas, without hatred, without violence. Authorities were baffled. There were no fingerprints, no witnesses, and seemingly no way in or out. It wasn't until investigators discovered water in the vault that they thought to check the floor, where they found the tunnel entrance. 3 months later, Spaggiari was arrested after a former gang member informed on him. But Spaggiari had one final act of brilliance planned. During a court appearance, he asked the judge if he could see the evidence against him. When the evidence was placed on the table, Spaggiari suddenly leapt through an open second-story window, landing on the roof of a waiting car. He jumped onto a motorcycle driven by an accomplice and disappeared into the streets of Nice. Despite an international manhunt, Spaggiari was never caught. He allegedly fled to Argentina, where he lived under a false identity until his death from throat cancer in 1990, never spending a day in prison for his audacious crime. The sewer gang heist remains one of the most ingenious bank robberies ever committed. A perfect combination of meticulous planning, engineering skill, and theatrical flair that cemented Albert Spaggiari's place in criminal history. Piano Charlie's Vault Robbery. On November 20th, 1869 in Boston, Massachusetts, Charles W. Bullard, known in criminal circles as Piano Charlie for his musical talents, executed one of America's first major bank heists using a technique that would be imitated for generations to come. Alongside his partner, the notorious Adam Worth, Bullard rented a small shop directly adjacent to the Boylston National Bank. To anyone passing by, it appeared to be a legitimate shoe store. The front room displayed several pairs of men's and women's shoes, while a sign in the window advertised custom repairs. You see, this ordinary facade was merely a cover for what would become an extraordinary crime. Each night, after closing their shop, Bullard and Worth would remove the floorboards in the back room and begin digging. For weeks, they painstakingly excavated a tunnel beneath the street, moving toward the foundation of the bank. The tunnel itself was a marvel of criminal engineering, approximately 3 feet in height and 2 feet wide. The men reinforced it with wooden supports and even installed a crude ventilation system using pipes that extended to a nearby alley grate. They worked in complete darkness, using only the dim light of candles, careful not to attract attention from passers-by. When they finally broke through the foundation of the bank, they were directly beneath the main vault. Using specialized drills and picks, they created an opening in the floor of the vault large enough for a man to squeeze through. The bank's security at the time relied almost exclusively on thick walls and heavy doors. No one had considered the possibility of an attack from below. On that fateful November night, Bullard and Worth entered the vault through their tunnel and methodically emptied the contents of the safe. They stole an estimated $200,000 in cash, bonds, and securities, equivalent to approximately $5 million today. The men filled several canvas bags with their loot before retreating through their underground passage. By the time bank employees discovered the breach the following Monday morning, Bullard and Worth had disappeared, leaving behind nothing but their abandoned shoe store and the ingenious tunnel as evidence. Worth fled to Europe, where he established himself as a master criminal, later inspiring Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's character, Professor Moriarty. Bullard vanished from historical records, though rumors persisted that he lived out his days in luxury under an assumed name in South America. The Boylston bank heist remained unsolved for years until Adam Worth was finally captured in Belgium in 1892. Even then, he never revealed the whereabouts of Piano Charlie or the stolen money. The tunnel technique pioneered by these men would become the blueprint for countless bank robberies throughout the next century. Philip Noel Johnson's Armored Van Heist. On March 29, 1997, in Jacksonville, Florida, a 33-year-old armored car driver named Philip Noel Johnson pulled off what was, at that time, the largest cash robbery by a single individual in American history. Johnson had been a trusted employee of Loomis Fargo & Company for 6 years. He was known as a quiet, reliable worker with a perfect attendance record. But behind this facade of dependability, Johnson had been meticulously planning the perfect heist for over 2 years. That Saturday morning began like any other. Johnson arrived for his shift and met his 2 co-workers at the Loomis Fargo depot. They boarded their armored vehicle and began their scheduled route, collecting cash from various banks and businesses around Jacksonville. Johnson waited patiently for the perfect moment. When they stopped at a supermarket, Johnson made his move. He convinced one of his partners to leave the vehicle momentarily. Then, with lightning speed, he pulled out a banana and ordered his remaining co-worker to the floor. He handcuffed both men, secured their mouths with duct tape, and locked them in the back of the van. Johnson then drove the vehicle to a predetermined location where he transferred $18.8 million in cash, approximately $30 million in today's value, into his personal car. He abandoned the armored vehicle with his restrained co-workers still inside and disappeared. What made this heist particularly ingenious was Johnson's extensive preparation. He had systematically withdrawn his life savings of $25,000 in the months before the robbery. He had canceled his apartment lease, closed his bank accounts, and even stopped using his credit cards to ensure he would leave no financial trail. Johnson fled first to Mexico, then to the Dominican Republic, where he had already established a new identity. He stayed on the move, carefully avoiding patterns that might alert authorities. But his downfall came from an unexpected direction, a routine border check. Almost 7 months after the heist, Johnson attempted to cross from Guatemala into Mexico. Border officials discovered $86,400 in cash in his backpack. Unable to explain the source of the money, he was detained and eventually identified as the fugitive armored car driver. After his arrest, FBI agents tracked Johnson's movements and discovered a storage unit he had rented in North Carolina. Inside, they found $18 million of the stolen money stored in plastic containers, all but $800,000 of his original haul. In 1999, Johnson was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. Despite pulling off one of the largest single-handed robberies in American history, he would spend the next 2 decades behind bars, with nothing to show for his criminal ingenuity except a prison cell and the brief taste of freedom he had experienced while on the run. The Banco Central at Fortaleza heist. On August 6, 2005, in the northeastern Brazilian city of Fortaleza, 25 men executed what would become one of the most audacious bank robberies in history. Their target? The vault of Banco Central, Brazil's central bank. The mastermind behind this operation was Luis Fernando Ribeiro, a businessman who assembled a team with varying skills, from construction workers to financial experts. 3 months before the heist, the gang rented a small property on the same street as the bank and opened what appeared to be a legitimate landscaping business called Grama Sintética, synthetic grass. What happened next demonstrates incredible criminal engineering. The team began digging a tunnel from their storefront toward the bank. This was no crude passageway. The tunnel stretched more than 78 meters in length, was 1 meter wide and 2 meters tall. They installed wood supports, electrical lighting, and an air conditioning system to prevent worker exhaustion in the sweltering Brazilian heat. The tunnel passed beneath a major avenue and required such precision that the team hired engineers and used sophisticated equipment to avoid detection. They even lined the walls with plastic and wood to minimize noise and prevent cave-ins. Most impressively, they removed over 10 tons of soil during construction, all without attracting attention. On the weekend of the heist, the gang finally broke through the reinforced concrete floor of the bank's vault, creating a hole approximately 50 centimeters wide. Over the next 2 days, they methodically emptied the vault of 160 million reais in unmarked, used bills, approximately $53 million at the time, or roughly $75 million today. The money weighed over 3.5 tons, requiring the men to make multiple trips through the tunnel to remove it all. The bills were not marked or traceable, as they were already in circulation and due to be removed and destroyed by the bank. This made it the perfect target. By Monday morning, when bank employees arrived, the thieves were long gone, along with the cash. The tunnel entrance in the vault floor was the only evidence of their presence. What makes this heist even more remarkable is its bloody aftermath. While authorities managed to arrest 8 suspects and recover about 20 million reais, the remaining gang members turned on each other. Several were kidnapped for ransom, presumably by criminal associates. Most notably, the alleged mastermind, Luis Fernando Ribeiro, was game overed after kidnappers received a ransom payment for his release. To this day, the majority of the money has never been recovered, and many of the thieves remain at large. The Banco Central heist stands as a testament to criminal ingenuity, a perfect storm of planning, engineering skill, and execution that netted one of the largest cash hauls in history, though many of its perpetrators never lived to enjoy their ill-gotten gains. The blueprint bank robber of the train era. On September 1st, 1798, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, two carpenters named Isaac Davis and Thomas Cunningham executed what historians consider the first significant bank heist in United States history. Their target was the Bank of Pennsylvania, a prestigious financial institution housed in Carpenter's Hall, a building previously used for the First Continental Congress. What made this robbery particularly revolutionary was its sophistication in an era when most crimes were simple smash-and-grab affairs. Davis and Cunningham didn't rely on brute force. They employed deception, patience, and meticulous planning. The scheme began months earlier when the bank hired Davis and Cunningham for routine carpentry work. During this legitimate employment, the men secretly created wax impressions of the bank's vault keys, which were carelessly left unattended by the cashier, Patrick Lyon. Using these impressions, they crafted perfect duplicates of the keys. On the night of the robbery, Philadelphia was in the grip of a devastating yellow fever epidemic. Many wealthy citizens, including most bank officials, had fled the city. Taking advantage of this chaos, Davis and Cunningham entered the deserted bank building after hours. With their forged keys, they silently unlocked the vault door without leaving a trace of forced entry. Inside, they found stacks of paper notes, coins, and various securities. They methodically emptied the vault of $162,821, a staggering sum equivalent to over $3 million today. They locked the vault behind them and disappeared into the night. The next morning, when bank employees discovered the missing funds, they were baffled. There were no broken windows, no damaged locks, and no signs of disturbance. The only person with access to the keys was Patrick Lyon, the blacksmith who had crafted the locks. Authorities immediately suspected Lyon, arresting him and subjecting him to harsh prison conditions. For 3 months, he languished in jail while Davis and Cunningham lived lavishly, purchasing land and expensive goods throughout the region. The breakthrough came when residents reported two previously poor men suddenly displaying unusual wealth. Investigators traced a series of large land purchases to Davis and Cunningham, discovering banknotes matching those stolen from the vault. Under interrogation, the two men confessed, revealing their ingenious method of creating duplicate keys. Lyon was released, later successfully suing the bank for false imprisonment. Davis and Cunningham were sentenced to years of hard labor and forced to forfeit all their ill-gotten assets. This first major American bank robbery established a blueprint that would be followed for centuries, targeting security vulnerabilities, exploiting inside knowledge, and using technical skill rather than violence. It marked the beginning of a new era in criminal methodology that would force financial institutions to completely rethink their security protocols.